Hello everyone, this is Tetrafolium, and I'm here today to talk about an uncharacteristically high-ranked Pokemon for once. Yeah, I know I can play with Pokemon that are actually good. Well, no, every Pokemon that I've shown I think actually is decent. I mean, Scizor was probably the worst, but even then, it's still a very usable Pokemon in the tier. And today we're going to be talking about Dugtrio, who is definitely one of the better Pokemon in ADV, but maybe not obviously so to the new players of this generation. So let's talk a little bit about it. So Vapicuno's viability rankings has it ranked number 13th, just below Claydol. Um, Personally, I think that's about right. I might argue that it's better than Claydol, but I don't know if I would say it's better than like Celebi or Suicune. Um, But in any case, maybe I should make my own viability rankings one day. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested in something like that. Um, but yeah, like it's pretty solidly here. I mean, that's all I got to say about this. But let's take a look at another viability ranking. So this is ABR, who is a very, very good player. I think just recently won ADV Revival 2. Um, And according to, I believe his pronouns, his viability rankings, uh, Dugtrio is the number 2 Pokemon in the tier. Um, this is an absolutely insane ranking. As you can see, Tyranitar is ranked lower than Snorlax. BKC is throwing a fit right now, and Salamence, I believe, is ranked at 38th, below Donphan and Sableye. It's not even the best. It's the third best Dragon type on this. ABR is a very, very avid Salamence hater. Um, I should go back and read his post on it, why he hates Salamence so much, because I just don't really understand it. In fact, Salamence is probably, if you pressed me on it, Salamence might be my favorite Pokemon to use in this tier. I think it's got some competition with um, Skarmory and maybe Jirachi, but Salamence I think is really good, and I don't know why uh, there's so much hate for it on ABR's list. But I'll read a little bit about what ABR thinks about Dugtrio, and this is going to kind of inform maybe the discussion that we're about to have. Uh, Dugtrio is the best revenge killer in the tier by far. It can trap with minimal or no chip Blissey, Breloom, Celebi, Heracross, Jirachi, Magneton, Metagross, Tyranitar, and other non-OU Pokemon as well. The main way to fight against Dugtrio is spikes, but Doug Spike spin teams are the overall most consistent in ADV. And I assume that ABR means that uh, a team that has Dugtrio, a Spiker, and a Spinner is the most consistent like team archetype in ADV based on the context of this. And Doug offense teams can overwhelm Spike teams by winning first. I also have to mention the lead Doug tends to the lead Doug trend that is absolutely real and makes people consider the lead meta in a different way. There's also the enabling of weather reset Tarless teams that have or that I love recently. Um, some of those things maybe that doesn't make sense to you if you're not super familiar with what this tier is like. Or maybe you're just a little new to competitive Pokemon overall. I'll try to explain some of these things. Let's continue though, because we will get to a lot of this. I just realized slacking over Metacham, that's insane. Anyway, Dugtrio's underwhelming stats. So let's take a look at these base stats and keep in mind that Dugtrio did get buffed, I believe, in Gen 7, where it's a base attack stat was raised to 100, but prior to Gen 7, it's base 80. Yeah, that's not fantastic. Dugtrio is the third lowest HP stat of any fully evolved Pokemon. It's only ahead of Shuckle and Shedinja. Shuckle's got base 20, and Shedinja, of course, is base 1. Although it's not technically base 1, it's like a modified HP stat where it's literally it has 1 HP. In any case, of all the OU ranked Pokemon that generally carry physical attacks, Dugtrio's base attack is only higher than Claydol's and Ty's Skarmory's. If you include explosion users, then I guess it's also higher than Gengar's, who's only sitting at a base 65. But like, I don't think that really counts. So Dugtrio's not even that strong when you think about it. But the one thing that Dugtrio does have going for it in its base stats, it's very fast. Very faster even. Faster than what? A lot of things. But I'm just pointing out my little typo there. But yeah, no, these are not good stats, just overall. So you might be thinking to yourself, well, why do we even bother using Dugtrio? This thing looks like an NU piece of garbage. But there are a few reasons. First and foremost, its ability, Arena Trap. So we kind of talked about this a little bit in my Raikou and Porygon 2 video, but Dugtrio with its ability is able to trap any Pokemon that is not a flying type or does not have the ability to levitate. What that means is that they will not be able to switch to an ally on that turn. So, as you can imagine, Dugtrio being extremely fast, if it can outspeed and kill the enemy, which outspeed, usually the answer is yes, actually kill the opponent, that's dependent on a few factors like what moves you have and what your stats are looking like. But assuming you can, then you just get a kill. The opponent can't do anything to stop it. I'm going to refer to Pokemon that are not flying type and do not have levitate as grounded kind of from here on out. I'm just going to assume that you will know what that means. Not a ground type, it's a ground dead Pokemon. Just so if you're not familiar with that, now you are. Soft switching moves, which in Gen 3, I believe Baton Pass is the only one. If we were talking about later gens, U-Turn, Volt Switch, Flip Turn, Teleport in Gen 8 and 9. Like all those types of moves, those would also be considered soft switching moves, in my opinion. But as far as Gen 3 goes, Baton Pass is the only one. That is not blocked by Arena Trap. You can still use that and still switch out. But as far as that goes, there's only, I believe, one, well, technically two Pokemon, but Ninjask is a flying type, so it doesn't matter. There's only one Pokemon that gets Baton Pass and is faster than Dugtrio, and that's Jolteon. So it's kind of a moot point. So this ability, it makes Dugtrio the perfect revenge killer. And we'll talk a little bit more about what revenge killer means if you're not familiar with that term. But let's move on to another of Dugtrio's nice things. The Choice Band. So this is not an item that's exclusive to Dugtrio, but this is Dugtrio's main item. It multiplies your attack stat by 150% or a 1.5 times boost, basically like getting a +1 stage raise to your attack. Like if you used, say, Meditate or Howl, which are moves that give you a +1 attack boost. With our base 80 attack, essentially our attack stats with the choice band boost will be 387 if we're running max attack Jolly. And that's a little bit higher than an Adamant Gyarados. Gyarados is a 125 base attack Pokemon, so that's pretty impressive. But if we're Adamant, we'll hit 424. And this is between a Jolly Slacking and a Jolly Metacham. Remember, Slacking has 160, and Metacham has Pure Power, which doubles its attack stat. So, actually, this is pretty impressive for a choice band. Now, granted, other Pokemon could run a choice band and have much more impressive attack stats than this. Like, let's say Flygon with a choice band, it's only base 100, but would eclipse these numbers for sure. But Flygon has some, issues where maybe it would like to switch its moves. It doesn't want to be locked into Earthquake necessarily because a flying type could switch in. But that's the thing with Dugtrio. Because your opponent can't switch in, you don't have to predict a switch out. You can just click the button for what's in front of you, and that is going to work. So, yeah, Choice Band, I say, is good for the hit-and-run, high-speed revenge killers. Again, using that term revenge killer, not really explaining what it means, but we'll talk about it in a moment. And Dugtrio is, that's perfectly fits what Dugtrio is all about. And the last is the overwhelming speed. So, this is every Pokemon that is legal in OU that either speed ties or outspeeds Dugtrio. I will tell you this right now. Electrode does not exist. I mean, I literally played against it on the ladder yesterday, so I shouldn't say that, but Electrode is such a bad Pokemon, and I don't think you really need to worry about that. Ninjask, it is seen. RUBL. It should stay down there, in my opinion, but it is definitely used. It's annoying, but the good news is that Ninjask rarely has moves to attack, or do consistent damage. So Dugtrio can 1v1 Ninjask, maybe. Problem is that Ninjask is just gonna baton pass its speed boost to something else, but I digress. Aerodactyl and Jolteon are real. They do exist. They're used somewhat commonly. Jolteon maybe a little less so. It's falling a little out of favor, but I still think Jolteon's a perfectly fine Pokemon. Maybe that's a Pokemon I'll do a video on soon. Crobat, no, that doesn't exist. That's not going to be used in OU by any serious team. Swellow, maybe there's some cheesy Endeavor strategy with Swellow that could work, but generally I don't see it. And then Alakazam and Sceptile are sometimes used, but they merely speed tie Dugtrio. And sometimes they don't run max speed. Sometimes they want a little bit of bulk to live some hits. In that case, Dugtrio will trap them and destroy them. Well, Alakazam more so than Sceptile, because Sceptile resists Dugtrio. But there you go. That's more about Sceptile than you've heard about in any video ever, except maybe a Gym Cool video. But no, of the Pokemon that are not listed here, we're faster than Starmie, Raikou, which are base 115, and Gengar, who's a base 110, and all the base 100s. And obviously anything slower than that. We're actually faster than Jolteon and Aerodactyl if they don't have a speed boosting nature, and Dugtrio is a big reason why these Pokemon are almost always running a speed boosting nature, because a Dugtrio with Earthquake against a Jolteon that's not fast enough to baton pass away, that's brutal. Like, Jolteon can't do anything about that. And then Aerodactyl, while it's not trapped in, Dugtrio can stop it from sweeping with a super effective Rock Slide. So Aerodactyl doesn't want to risk that. We're also faster than a max speed Tyranitar after a Dragon Dance boost. That hits 264, which is just a bit faster than Starmie and Raikou, who hit. Did I say 264? I meant 364. Both of those hit. Both of Starmie and Raikou hit 361. Dugtrio hits 372 at fastest, so it clears Tyranitar. We're also faster than any base 70s that don't have a speed boosting nature at +1. So, like, for example, Metagross, if it got a Salac boost and it was like an Adamant Metagross with a Salac boost, we'd still be faster than that. That's a pretty rare interaction, to be honest. There are not very many base 70s who are running Salac Berry or anything like that, but it does matter for Pokemon like, for example, Scizor being a base 65 in that Salac strategy that we showed off in that video. We had to run Jolly because we can't outspeed Dugtrio otherwise. So yeah, Dugtrio, its speed is phenomenal. Like, every Pokemon wishes they had this speed stat. Except for Aerodactyl and Jolteon, obviously, but... So, now we're going to talk about this revenge kill thing that I've been mentioning. How to safely switch our Dugtrio in. And this matters because Dugtrio has such terrible defenses, it is going to get O-code by pretty much anything. Not exactly, like, resisted hits like a Rock-type move, you might live. And certain, like, really weak moves you could live as well, but in general, like, you're not gonna live a Swampert Earthquake, you're not gonna live a Salamence Hidden Power Flying. You're not gonna live none of that. All right. So the revenge kill. What a revenge kill means is you sacrifice a Pokemon against your opponent. And for this particular case, we're thinking about a Dugtrio target. Think like, I don't know, let's say Magneton, for example. It's a Pokemon that very easily dives to Earthquake. So you sacrifice, say, your Skarmory to the Magneton. Then you pick Dugtrio to come in. Dugtrio will trap the opponent, and then you can KO them. So Dugtrio is not the only Pokemon that revenge kills, or the only Pokemon that even takes advantage of this concept. There are a lot of Pokemon that can get a lot out of, like, the revenge kill. Take, like, for example, Tyranitar. If Tyranitar comes in that situation, it could click Dragon Dance, and Magneton can't kill, and now you have a really powerful Tyranitar that might sweep through your opponent's team. But that being said, you know, if they have a Swampert in the back, they could switch to Swampert and stop your sweep. Because Tyranitar, even at +1, is not breaking through a full health Swampert. Dugtrio does not have to worry about the switch out if you're picking your target. So that's where it's really nice as a revenge killer, as I've kind of alluded to before. Soft switching. So soft switching is a counter to Dugtrio, but it's also really good at helping Dugtrio. So you have your Baton Passer in Gen 3, of course. If we were talking Gen 4, you could use U-turn, but we're talking Gen 3. You have a Baton Passer, and you will click Baton Pass. That means you're going to get some extra information on this turn. How a turn works is first switches are figured out. So if your opponent decides to switch their, let's say, their Skarmory out against your Zapdos, they could switch to, let's say, Blissey. You will see that happen first. well, I guess technically you pick your moves first. We're saying you pick Baton Pass. So your opponent switches their Skarmory to Blissey to better take a Thunderbolt from your Zapdos. Instead, the Zapdos clicks Baton Pass. Now you know that the Blissey is in. It's not clicking an attack. Dugtrio could safely come in. And if you have a Dugtrio set that we will talk about later, then Dugtrio will kill this Blissey. And yeah, that's really good. There are other cases where you might be able to do something. Like, let's say, same thing with Zapdos. I'll go ahead and show off our Zapdos here. Isn't he lovely? I think technically Zapdos is genderless, so isn't it lovely is probably more appropriate. But in any case, the Tyranitar is in versus your Zapdos. You click Baton Pass. Okay, the Tyranitar chose to stay in. Most likely, the Tyranitar would be going for Rock Slide. This is a move that Dugtrio can live, so you could switch to Dugtrio here, take the Rock Slide, and then kill the Tyranitar, ideally. In practice, that's not generally advisable because you might not survive Earthquake, depending on your Dugtrio set. And Dragon Dance could be kind of nasty for you as well if you're not faster than that, if you're not running enough speed. So we might talk about that interaction a little more when we get into the replays. But in any case, we'll skip it for right now. Vaporeon I have here as a sort of slow version of Zapdos. Vaporeon's only base 65 speed. That's the same speed as Scizor. You can let Baton Pass feed you more information if you have a slower Pokemon, because your opponent, if they're faster than you, they might get their attack off, like the Tyranitar is going to go for a Rock Slide against your Vaporeon. That's not very advisable, but let's say that's what they're going to do. And you don't get flinched with your Vaporeon. You Baton Pass here, and now Dugtrio can come in, and that's like really good. That's a really good way to start a game. The last is a hard switch into a status move or a resisted move. This is really risky, especially for Pokemon that carry moves that can kill you. Like, let's say you're trying to trap Celebi. Celebi might have Hidden Power Grass or Giga Drain, both of which will easily kill Dugtrio. But Celebi might also have Calm Mind and Leech Seed and Recover, like moves that you really don't care about if you're Dugtrio. Yeah, Leech Seed Chip is annoying, but Dugtrio is so frail, like Chip doesn't matter. You just don't want to get hit. So, you don't mind taking a Leech Seed in that case. And if Dugtrio outspeeds or survives that hit, outspeeds and KOs, it can eliminate the target. So commonly that's Tyranitar. Tyranitar kind of gets crapped on in all of my videos, doesn't it? You'd be shocked that it's the #1 Pokemon in the tier. In any case, Dugtrio is kind of weird with its move slots. There are 3 moves that basically every Dugtrio has to have, and they're not exactly the 3 moves you would expect. Well, the first one is probably what you would expect, Earthquake. It's obviously like your best move to finish off ground weak Pokemon like Tyranitar, Metagross, Corsola, and Jirachi. It's also your best neutral click because of Stab, and it's 100 base power. That's not nothing to bat an eye at. It's just really good. By the way, Corsola is not actually a Pokemon that you need to consider. I just snuck that in there. Just wondering if I get a reaction out of people. Hidden Power Bug, 70 base power. The IVs here. There are a few different IV configurations you could use, but this is probably the best one because it's the only one that does not require you to lower your speed, and speed is the stat that matters the most, especially for Dugtrio. You're going to threaten an Oko on a no bulk investment Celebi. It's not guaranteed even, but it could. The bulkiest common Celebi spread, which is the OU utility, if you look in the calculator, takes 66% minimum from a Jolly Dugtrio. So this is one of those Pokemon where, unlike what ABR was kind of suggesting, that you can get in with minimal chip against certain Pokemon, Celebi, unless you know what the Celebi set is, which would take you playing a little bit of the game out against your opponent to see what moves they click, what the damage rolls are, you're going to have to figure out some information about that before you can safely get Dugtrio into trap Celebi. It's just, not, in my opinion, it's not worth it to go for the trap on Celebi unless you are pretty confident you can get the kill, or as long as you just need damage on Celebi, or maybe you have a Pursuit Mon in the back that can threaten Celebi regardless of what it does. I don't know. It's also your best move to hit Claydol. You're dealing about 50% to the standard Claydol set. But I would not generally advise looking for Dugtrio to kill Claydol because A, Claydol is a levitator, so it can leave whenever it wants, and B, Claydol is not a very high value target to be risking your entire Dugtrio on. Not to say that Claydol is not a good Pokemon, but it's not a very threatening Pokemon. The worst it can do is boom, which may be a problem. You would like Claydol to boom on something like a Dugtrio rather than a Wincon like your Suicune, but because you can't trap Claydol, I generally would not advise using Dugtrio to counter Claydol in specific. Yeah, there you go. Celebi's getting washed there. And then Aerial Ace. So, Aerial Ace is kind of strange. It's not a very commonly used move in ADV. But generally, or I should say, in the case of Dugtrio, it's just used to KO Heracross and Breloom. Both of these Pokemon are ×4 weak to flying, so most of the time they're going to die. Heracross can live with max HP investment, but that's almost never going to happen because Heracross needs speed investment to outspeed certain things. You don't want to be slower than Tyranitar with Heracross. That's just, you don't do that. All right. And then Breloom can technically survive if it runs max HP and max defense, but okay, that's also just not happening. You're not doing that. You would use HP flying for coverage against these Pokemon, except your hidden power is already taken up by hidden power bug. You can't have multiple hidden power types on one Pokemon, otherwise the electrics would be too good. So you're gonna have to use Aerial Ace here, but it gets the job done. It hits the two things that it needs to hit. Some people will try to click Aerial Ace against Pokemon like Metacham, for example, who are weak to flying, but it's not generally that good. Earthquake does about the same, I think. No, actually, Earthquake does more, right? Because the stab boost, you're effectively a 150 base power move, whereas Aerial Ace, super effective, is only effectively a 120 base power move. So, Aerial Ace, literally, when I talk about these Pokemon here for these moves, literally, these are the only Pokemon you click them against, okay? Even the hidden power bug into a Starmie, right? That's 140 base power effectively. Earthquake is stronger. Just click Earthquake. There, like, if you're ever confused, use the calculator. That will tell you what to click. But yeah, other than the Pokemon listed here, just click Earthquake against them. I guess unless they're Earthquake immune, but that's what we're about to talk about here with this next slide. So, other moves. These are not exactly required on Dugtrio. Rock Slide being the first of them. You might think, well, how is Rock Slide not required? Like, how are you going to hit a flying type? Well, it's a good question. Rock Slide is generally, I mean, actually, your best move for hitting flying type Pokemon. We can't afford to run HP Rock because we're using HP Bug already. So, sorry, all the ABR fans who love their accurate moves. We're going to have to rely on a 90 accuracy move in some cases. But the thing is, flying type Pokemon can switch against Dugtrio, as we've kind of been repeating throughout this presentation. So Dugtrio's not even really that good at killing flying type Pokemon. They'll just switch if they're afraid of Rock Slide, and that's not great. I didn't really talk about Protect against Dugtrio. Actually, maybe I'll hold off on that, but hold that thought about Protect. I have Charizard and Moltres here because they're times 4 weak to Rock Slide, and they will die to any Dugtrio Rock Slide, which is really nice. But again, they can always switch out, though, if they're afraid of a Rock Slide, so you can't really bank on it. But, you know, if you're getting down to the last Mons, and, like, Charizard's the only Pokemon left, then yes, Dugtrio can clean the game up. Sunny Day. So, why would you use Sunny Day on a Dugtrio? Well, Dugtrio is commonly going to come in to remove the Tyranitar from the game. Then it can switch out and come back in later and use Sunny Day. And why you would do that is you want to clear Sandstorm. So there are a lot of Pokemon in the tier that do not like to take Sandstorm's chip. They would love to have leftovers recovery. In fact, I'll show 2 of them here, Snorlax and Suicune. They are so much more dangerous when their leftovers is getting them back to full health. Snorlax switching into a special move might take like 20%, and then you cut into that chip 6%. You're only doing 14% damage per turn. Like, that's not very good. That gives Snorlax a lot of turns to curse up, or to fish for Body Slam Paras, or like do whatever, really. And then Suicune, like, I hope I don't have to explain why Suicune is so strong with that, but I guess I will. If you're not 3-hit KOing Suicune, then Suicune can just rest loop you until you run out of PP, thanks to Pressure being such a demonic ability in this generation. It'll also boost Fire-type attacks by 1.5 times and reduce Water by half. That might be useful depending on your team comp. It's generally not that important. And then you also have niche synergy with Solar Beam, Morning Sun, Moonlight, the ability Chlorophyll. Again, these are kind of niche. It depends on your team construction. Most teams aren't going to have any of those synergies, but if you have a Sunny Day Dugtrio, you might be able to incorporate 1 or 2 of these synergies. In any case, now Toxic. Toxic is just a move you could throw on any Pokemon if you don't know what to throw on it. It's not great for Dugtrio, but you can force a trapped Pokemon to get poisoned. Or if you're up against like a Superman team where most of the Pokemon aren't going to get trapped by Dugtrio, you could Toxic an incoming Flygon or something, and that could be that's your best thing that you can do against Flygon. Dugtrio can't really do anything else against Flygon. It's like the perfect counter almost. But Toxic is something you could do. And then Protect. So Protect can stall for turns, like if you have Toxic on an enemy, you can get an extra turn of Toxic Chip on them. Or if you used like Perish Song with something like Celebi or Gengar, or I don't know, Lapras maybe, and you switch to Dugtrio, you can protect and you can ensure the kill. Now, if you're doing something like this, like a Perish trapping idea, you're probably not going to be choice banned. You're probably going to be sub protect with leftovers, which I don't know if that's a great Dugtrio set. You'd lose a lot of your potency not having a choice band, but it can be really nice at eliminating Pokemon that are otherwise really difficult to do. But it's going to take some gaming. Like, you're going to have to catch something like a Suicune Calm Minding on the Switch. But Protect, I said I'll put a pin in it. I was about to say something about it, but I figured this is a better time. Generally, with choice band Pokemon, Protect can be a nuisance because Protect will obviously guard you from any of the damage you're going to take, and if you know that the enemy is choice banded, like in the case of Aerodactyl, where it commonly is choice banded, you can know what move it's locking itself into, and then if you have an appropriate switch, like say, oh, I know the Aerodactyl is locking itself into Earthquake, you can switch to your flying type Pokemon and completely neutralize Aerodactyl's effectiveness until it switches out. Dugtrio's a little bit more resistant to that because it traps most of the things that it's up against. So, say I'm trapping, we'll just say Tyranitar again, why not? Actually, no, let's say we're trapping Magneton, right? Magneton is a Pokemon that sometimes runs Protect. The Magneton can Protect to see what move you're going to lock yourself into, maybe Earthquake. But like it can't really do anything after that because it can't switch and it's not faster, so it's just gonna die to the next Earthquake. So it's kind of a moot point for many of the Pokemon that would be protecting against Dugtrio. But I should note, defensive Flygon, probably the biggest counter to Dugtrio. It commonly runs Protect. It can come in, It could come in on any of Dugtrio's hits. It could also just Protect to see what Dugtrio is going to do, so you can get a more appropriate switch. Or it could just attack you with Earthquake, really. It's kind of dealer's choice with Flygon. And then one more move, Beat Up. So Beat Up is probably the most complicated move in ADV. I mean, you could probably get a little more, like you could argue Metronome or Assist are a little more complicated if you get extremely granular. I've seen that somebody was able to reverse engineer like Showdown's RNG to predict which move Metronome was going to call. I don't know if that's still a thing or not, but I watched a video on it and it's kind of cool. I don't think it actually would have any like ramifications because most of the time Metronome's going to call a move that's like not helpful at all for the situation, but I digress. So from Bulbapedia, this is I think Gen 2, Gen 3 Beat Up. Might also work like this in Gen 4. Pretty sure it does actually. Beat Up inflicts damage on the target from the user and each conscious Pokemon, so not fainted, in the user's party that does not have a non-volatile status. So if a Pokemon is burned, paralyzed, asleep, poisoned, whatever, then it's treated as if it's fainted for the sake of this. Each strike is typeless and has a base power of 10. Damage is determined using each of the attacking Pokemon's base attack and level and the target's base defense. So what that means is, essentially, you're going to have a 6-hit move, assuming that none of your Pokemon are fainted, none of your Pokemon are statused. You have a 6-hit move. Each of the hits is going to be a 10 base power move, but it's going to act as if it's using the base attack stat of the Pokemon that you have in the back. So, for example, if you have a Slacking on your team, that's a 160 base power Pokemon, so it's like it's as if a 160 base power Pokemon was hitting with a 10 base power move against the opponent. It does not factor in EVs at all. So you can still use beat up on a specially oriented team that has like Pokemon like Celebi and Zapdos, which have base 100, base 90 attack stats, which are like fine. Now, because it's such a weak, each move is so weak, you don't want to use it on targets that have high defense. So generally, beat up becomes a move that's only clicked against Blissey. You could click it against Chansey as well, but obviously, like, no, Chansey doesn't exist. Like, it's not going to be used in OU at all. Because why? You just have Blissey, and you can't have both, really. Maybe you could, but you can't really. So, beat up basically is a move that exists only to hit Blissey. Now, it's not a guaranteed thing against Blissey. I mean, it's going to 2-hit KO. But sometimes it doesn't even 2-hit KO. You could be in a board state or a game state position that Blissey, or that like you have a bunch of Pokemon statused or knocked out, and now you won't even you're not even going to do much damage at all to Blissey. That could be bad. Or you might have a team that has really low base attacks across the board. Like, you know, you're primarily using defensive Pokemon or like special attackers that don't have good attack stats. So less Jirachis and Celebis and more like Starmies and Blisseys and stuff like that. So and those kind of teams you don't necessarily want to use beat up. Here's the beat up users that you'll commonly see: Dugtrio, Charizard, and Houndoom. There are other Pokemon like Sneasel that get them, but like, come on, Sneasel's, that's not a Pokemon in OU. So matchup spread. So Dugtrio, matchups for Dugtrio are a little bit more one-dimensional than others. I'm not concerned with how Dugtrio can switch into Pokemon, because generally it's not a good idea to just switch Dugtrio in on something unless you're for sure that you're gonna survive a hit, like a resisted Rock Slide from Tyranitar or a Thunderbolt from Raikou. In fact, actually, you'll live a HP Ice or Grass from Raikou, unless it's Modest, which I've covered in my Raikou video. But the Pokemon that are pretty much always going to get trapped and killed are the UUBLs on this list and Magneton. There's practically nothing they can do to live. Yeah, in theory, they could run like 252 HP, 252 defense with a bold nature or something like that. But like that just makes them really, really terrible against everything other than Dugtrio. So they can't afford to do that. In the case of Raikou, you don't even KO the Dugtrio back if you do that. So no, don't do that. They have some options, like they could Magneton and Smeargle could use Endure with a Salac Berry to outspeed the Dugtrio afterwards, which can be kind of nice, but you could also just switch your Dugtrio out if you're really scared of what they're going to do thereafter. So I don't necessarily give that as a win for them. These Pokemon here in the next tier down are either weak to Earthquake or frail enough that Dugtrio can 1 or 2 hit KO them. Starmie is like the most fringe on this. Metagross is also kind of fringe as well, because Dugtrio only does like, I think in the ballpark of 60% to Metagross. You're going to need some significant chip on the two of them for Dugtrio to effectively trap and kill them, but it's not that much chip, and you could feasibly get it. Like, you go for your attack with your Snorlax, your Earthquake on the Metagross, or your Body Slam on the Starmie, and if they gets killed, then Dugtrio can effectively revenge kill. For the other three, Dugtrio can sometimes get a OHKO on them, especially if it's Adamant. It's, I think, pretty favored to get OHKOs on the bulkless versions of all of these. But Jirachi, with high HP investment and a little bit of defense investment, can live a Dugtrio Earthquake. But it doesn't usually KO back, which is important to note. If it has Ice Punch, it might. But if it doesn't, it usually won't. Tyranitar and Metacham both also might die to an Adamant Earthquake. I mean, Tyranitar might die to a Jolly Earthquake if it has like no investment at all. But I digress. The next Pokemon are Mons that need a coverage move to kill. In the case of Blissey, it's usually going to be beat up. You can sometimes get a 2-hit KO with Earthquake, depending on your Dugtrio set, which could be good, but it's not fantastic because Blissey is almost always running Ice Beam, and if you don't have the right defensive investment, you might just die to an Ice Beam. So that's not great. But the other Mons, Breloom we Aerial Ace, Celebi we HP Bug, Charizard and Moltres we're gonna Rock Slide, and Heracross will Aerial Ace. Now you can't fit all of those moves in. I mean, I guess you can fit all of those moves. No, you can't. You cannot fit all of those moves. You can't have Earthquake and all the coverage moves. So you have to decide which of these Mons you're not going to be able to hit as effectively. The next one are the flying types that can switch out pretty easily on Dugtrio, but they have to take a Rock Slide if they're going to stay in. Aerodactyl is kind of... maybe you shouldn't really consider Aerodactyl quite the same as the rest of these because it outspeeds and it's threatening a kill with Double Edge. But in any case, like these Pokemon, you could hit with Rock Slide and do a lot of damage. Every other Pokemon is a Pokemon that either cannot be trapped or does not get 2-hit KO'd. Like even Cloyster, a super effective Rock Slide or your Banded Earthquake is not going to 2-hit KO, and you're just going to die to Surf or Ice Beam. Pretty much everything else, yeah. The only Pokemon that can get 2-hit KO'd is an offensive Gengar. It can get 2-hit KO'd by Rock Slide, but because it can just switch, it's usually not going to let itself die. So, yeah. And then everything here has moves that are good enough damage to deal with the Dugtrio, or like in the case of Skarmory, can just set spikes because like it does not care. So yeah, this is a really interesting matchup spread. If you see yourself against like these top 3 tiers, or you're like you have a major weakness to one of the Pokemon in these top 3 tiers, maybe you consider putting Dugtrio on your team. This is the standard Dugtrio set. It's max attack, max speed, using basically all the moves that I just talked about. There are some problems with this, like I kind of mentioned before. You're not guaranteed to OHKO Celebi from full. If you're Jolly, Tyranitar can avoid an OHKO from EQ if you're Jolly. Also if you're Adamant, but like it takes a lot more. So, Modest Blissey Ice Beam will guarantee an OHKO on this particular Dugtrio set, and you're not guaranteed to 2-hit KO a Bold Blissey with EQ. So we're going to talk about how you can kind of modify this set to accomplish some slightly different goals. So Adamant, now granted, the standard set does suggest Adamant as a possibility for you, but I just want to highlight it here. You're guaranteed to KO the bulky DD Tyranitar set after Spike's Chip, not including the leftovers recovery, so maybe not quite usually going to do that, but if they happen to be running Lum Barrier, if you knock them off or something like that, um, then you're in a good spot. If you have like 2 layers of spikes, then you're very favored to KO even after the leftovers recovery, and then 3 layers you're guaranteed, obviously. So that's good. You're gonna get a guaranteed KO on offensive Celebi, which is only running 76 HP EVs, and you're also you have more favorable rolls into bulkier Celebi sets, and then you're gonna have better rolls versus Blissey with your Earthquake. Another thing you can do is invest in bulk. So with some HP and SPDEF investment, you can live an unboosted Blissey Ice Beam. So here's a really long post by Vapakuno. Without this channel, or without Vapakuno, this channel might just be like completely terrible. But there are some spreads in here. The first spread is this 8 HP, 252 attack, 20 SPDEF, 228 speed, with an adamant nature. Well, it could be Jolly as well, but that's giving you a little bit of bulk to survive HP Grass or Ice from some Pokemon like Celebi and Jirachi. It gives you a chance to live Blissey as well. It's better against Bold Blissey, I think. One thing that Vapakuno will note is that with Dugtrio, you want to not have a multiple of 4 as your HP. So, like 4 EVs with Dugtrio puts it at a multiple of 4, which means it will die switching into 3 layers of spikes 4 times. If you don't have exactly a multiple of 4, you will be able to live an additional switch in. So you could maybe switch Dugtrio in 5 times. How often is that going to matter? Not much, but it might. So keep that in mind. There's some bulkier sets here, like this 8 HP, 222 attack, 164 SPDEF, 108 speed, with a Jolly nature. That will allow you to survive a bold Blissey Ice Beam after spikes, and a modest Blissey Ice Beam without spikes. You could also do a higher SPDEF investment, one to survive a bold Blissey Ice Beam after 2 layers of spikes. You can invest in HP for better odds to live an Earthquake from Tyranitar or Metagross, which would be this 112 HP, 124 attack, 40 SPDEF, and 108 speed. And you'll still survive a modest Blissey Ice Beam without spikes. So maybe that was a little long-winded for us to just say, I'm going to use that last set. I think that one is really cool, like being able to live, usually live a Tyranitar Earthquake. If they're predicting you to switch to your Dugtrio and they Earthquake, you'll still live, which is great. And then you're also still good into Blissey. Now, I will say this isn't perfect. This is definitely not perfect against things like Blissey. With Earthquake, we're going to be doing a little over half to non-bold Blisseys, and bold Blisseys we're not quite going to get there. So we're not as great against Blissey as we maybe would like. Beat Up would be really nice over Rock Slide, but with the team construction that I'm about to show, I can't really afford to run Beat Up. So we're just gonna have to accept that. But we have other ways to deal with like really passive Blissey sets with the team that I'm about to show, so I'm not that worried about it. Instead, I'm a little more worried about taking on Tyranitar. So this set is probably as good a Tyranitar answer as you're going to get. I mean, you could maybe, if you could find a way to run Adamant and get to this 333 speed, That might be a little better, but I digress. So we are guaranteed to survive a Jolly Tyranitar Earthquake. I think this percentage that I have is wrong. I think it's actually 100 minus that. Let me check real quick. Dugtrio versus Tyranitar. If you're adamant. Yeah, actually we're 62.5% to survive. So it's only it's a 37.5 to KO. So we're actually favored to live. So sorry about that confusion there on the screen. We're going to live a modest Blissey Ice Beam, as said. We'll also survive HP Grass or Ice from Timid, Zapdos, Raikou, and Jolteon. I mean, Jolteon's like less impressive than the Zapdos, of course, but it's good to know. And then we're still going to be faster than all the base 100s. We're going to be faster than a modest Raikou. We're going to be faster than a Dragon Dance boosted Adamant Tyranitar. The Jolly Tyranitar will get us, but hopefully we have provisions for that in our team. Let's take a look at the team. So this is like a Blissey special offense team, which I say is the special offense for people who hate playing against special offense. The idea with this, we're going to have a lead Suicune, which is a Pokemon that I generally don't use as a lead very often. I much prefer, like, the bold roar Suicune to win in the end game, but instead we're going to use an offensive Suicune. We're going to threaten Pokemon like Tyranitar, Skarmory, and Metagross on the lead with really strong Hydro Pumps. Skarmory's there to set spikes to help us put things into range of a Dugtrio trap. So things like Tyranitar and Celebi that need a little bit of chip for us to be able to trap and kill them. And then we have a bulky Super Rachi as our main win condition. Dugtrio basically is going to try to eliminate anything that Jirachi struggles to kill. So say, for example, like a Metagross. If we can weaken the Metagross, kill it with Dugtrio, then that's one less Earthquake we have to take with our Jirachi. And that's kind of the idea here. I have some interesting spreads. If you look in the team paste, you might see some things that are not exactly standard, especially like this Gengar set has a kind of interesting EV spread. Not that it's like completely novel, that nobody probably has ever thought of it, but if you have questions about that, you can ask me in the comments. So let's do we're gonna go switch to a different I should have probably picked this music out beforehand. No ad, let's go. Oh, and also I should mention here. Oh, I'm getting a lot of lag here. This team here, look at ABR's tier list here. This is just the top 6 Pokemon from ABR's tier list, but I switched Metagross out for Jirachi, so that's kind of funny. Maybe you could try this team with Metagross instead of Jirachi and see if ABR was cooking. Other things I've thought about lead Vaporeon instead of Suicune. It's kind of interesting. It could be good if you want to baton pass a speed boost to Jirachi, but I generally don't want to reveal the Jirachi that quickly with this team, so I don't think that the Salak baton pass lead Vaporeon is quite right for this team. I've also thought about Fortress instead of Skarmory, but I just have like some sort of hang up where I just don't know how to play with Fortress. So let's get into some replays here. So first game, lead Suicune versus lead Tyranitar. So this is like perfect. This is exactly what we want to see. So I'm going to go for a Hydro Pump, and I miss it on Celebi. Not the end of the world. The chip could have been nice, but I'm going to just stay in an Ice Beam. That does a lot, and I get a freeze. So that's all extremely fortunate. We can kill with an Ice Beam here, but I decide I'm going to switch to Skarmory. So my opponent has a fast Skarmory with Taunt. I am also a Skarmory with Taunt, but he's even faster than I am. Or she, I guess it's a female Skarmory. I go for a T-Bolt, and I catch Jirachi on switch. I will Will-O-Wisp the Jirachi. Assuming it doesn't have Psychic, I'm in a really good spot. And if it does have Psychic, I might die, but getting a Will-O-Wisp on Jirachi means that I can win 1v1 with my Jirachi later, regardless of what Jirachi set this is. But I actually catch the Tyranitar who comes in immediately. I'm going to Giga Drain, and I get a critical hit, which is really nice. But this is actually a Dragon Dance Tyranitar, which is kind of interesting. Because I got the burn on it, I really don't care about Dragon Dance. It gets a crit back on my Skarm, which is, I guess, kind of good for it. Does it get a flinch here? No. And I get my Spike Up, and Tyranitar is gone. So that's very good. This Gengar set is actually pretty good. It's like a intermediary between the defensive Gengar, which is selling out to try to beat Pursuit Tyranitars, and offensive Gengar, who wants like all the special attack. It's got mostly special attack investment and speed investment, but it has a little bit of Spadef to help me out against Tyranitar, and Will-O-Wisp to beat the other ones. So I'm going to come in with my Dugtrio against this Jirachi. I don't care what Jirachi this is, it's not going to live this Earthquake. And I thought that was going to be safe because against Skarmory, you're either clicking Thunderbolt, Calm Mind, or potentially Wish. If it was Wish Protect, it could maybe have gotten out of that, but it would need a Body Slam Para on my Dugtrio, and I was willing to play for that. Because I'm locked into Earthquake, Celebi can come in. Goes for a Leech Seed on I guess a predicted switch, and that was fair. But I'm going to go back to Dugtrio here, and I'll just die to Giga Drain. It was a little bit aggressive of me, but I'm up so much, I figured that it was still worth it for me to do that. Gengar could come in and Ice Punch and do 50, and then I get Psychic and killed. But that's okay because we've sufficiently weakened a lot of the things that threaten Jirachi. So I can go ahead and go for Fire Punch. I get a crit, which is really nice. Because now the Skarmory can't get another Spike Up or do anything. Although the second Spike is not generally that threatening for me. So against Swampert, I do have HP Grass, but I don't generally kill from full. So I'm going to Calm Mind. I have enough bulk to live an Earthquake, which is really nice. And then we see Aerodactyl. So generally, my game plan against Aerodactyl is to have things that can switch into Rock Slide and Earthquake alive at the end of the game. And if I have that, then I can just switch back and forth, and then I'm 2-hit KOing it with pretty much everything on my team. I will sack the Blissey here. Because it's still locked into Rock Slide, it cannot kill my Jirachi. It goes for it anyway, playing for the flinch. It would need to get, like, basically 2. I go for Fire Punch, predicting Celebi to come in, because I figured that was the best way for him to win this game. But instead, stays in with Aerodactyl. It could have been bad for me, but Suicune should come in, and it's like Ice Beam is going to finish everything here. This does get a Giga Drain. If it got a crit there, it would have beat me, but you know, we can't play scared of crits all the time, all right? And yeah, that was a pretty nice game. Dugtrio was really, really instrumental for eliminating that Super Rachi. And yeah, that's basically what I have to say about this game. Speaking of crits, here's a Wild Rumpus, who I believe is a Team Fortress 2 player. So shoutouts to Team Fortress 2, shoutouts to Random Crits. That's Pokemon in Team Fortress 2, shaking the hands right there. So we have a lead Scarm here. So against lead Scarm, I'm going to go for Calm Mind, because I have a really strong Hydro Pump. And I can force the Skarmory to stop clicking spikes on me. I'll go for a spike of my own. I am actually faster, and I get taunted. I could have taunted instead, but I figured that this would have been better in the case that my opponent switches. I get roared out to Dugtrio, so I actually reveal Dugtrio early, which is not good. Because I know I'm faster, I'm just going to taunt this, because it seems like it's just roar spamming me. I'll get my second layer up, and then Charizard is revealed. Goes for a Fire Blast and gets a burn on my Suicune, which is really unfortunate. Into Celebi, I'll just Hydro Pump. So now that Dugtrio is revealed, this Celebi is in range to die to HP Bug. So Celebi is extremely not incentivized to click anything like a Calm Mind or something like that. It has to click something that helps it beat Dugtrio at this stage. So this can be like the fear factor of Dugtrio. When you have these Dug targets, like, people have to play differently knowing that you have a Dugtrio on the team. Now my opponent just goes for Leech Seed, which I think I probably could have came in with Dugtrio and got the kill there. But I didn't want to risk that. So instead I'll just go to Skarmory and get my third layer up, which is really, really good for me. I roar, expecting my opponent to do something like a Dragon Dance. But instead they go for Rock Slide and they miss it. I'll go to Suicune here on the Celebi. I am faster than it, as evident by the Sandstorm damage. But instead I'm going to go to Skarmory, scouting a Grass-type move. I do get it. And I have Drill Peck, so I'll just take the damage here. At some point, this Celebi is going to get trapped and died, I hope. Oh, I get a nice critical hit with the Drill Peck there. And now I go to Dugtrio. So I figured that Recover was coming here, and it's got Hidden Power Grass, not Giga Drain, so I can go for a nice HP Bug there. Now, because this is a defensive Celebi, I don't get the kill, but look at its HP, 26%. That's dead to spikes plus Sandstorm, so if I go to something that threatens a kill on this, like Gengar, this Celebi is dead. Yeah, I couldn't switch out because it would just be a sack at the end of the day. So against this Tyranitar, I will go for a Will-O-Wisp. It might have Lumberry, and actually it does. So that's not great for me. I'll go for another Will-O-Wisp, hoping that I outspeed, and I do because it's an Adamant Tyranitar. I will Giga Drain this and get my HP back, and now I will survive another Rock Slide. My opponent wisely goes for another boost, but my Suicune's so low at this point, I can afford to sack it. And now Gengar's back in, mostly to threaten the Charizard so that it can't come in. Goes to Blissey. I'll go to my own Blissey. This is just pretty standard at this stage. I have Toxic on my Blissey to force other Blissey to switch out. And I have Flamethrower to hit Skarmory. Generally, I think I prefer Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt would have been really nice here for this Charizard, but I think Flamethrower does have some nice applications, like being able to hit a Metagross harder, and also threatening a kill on Fortress, which I don't have a spinner on my team, so that can be important. So this Charizard, I just don't want to let it get it behind a sub, because then it could beat my Gengar, so I'm willing to sack the entire Blissey to stop that from being able to happen. my opponent will actually sub all the way down to like dead to Sandstorm to get my Blissey here, which it doesn't even guarantee my Blissey because I could have soft boiled there, but it's kind of interesting. I go for a Drill Peck there just to get some damage. I'll go for Drill Peck again. I'll get T-bolted and paralyzed, which is really not nice. My opponent's getting a lot of these secondary effects here. If I wasn't paralyzed there, I would have been able to taunt the Blissey and leave it at low HP for potentially my Jirachi to be able to finish off. But because I was not able to get that taunt off, now I'm going to have to play a Calm Mind War. Because I assume that this is a Calm Mind Blissey. Yes, but with Ice Beam Thunderbolt, it generally is. I think in this situation, Jirachi is, in my opinion, favored. Because it's faster and because it has the doubled secondary effects, particularly Psychic's Spadef drop and Fire Punch's burn chance. So I'm not too mad about having to go for this, but it is like basically the first Pokemon to crit wins this battle. So that's kind of just how it goes. Yeah, not much to say. Now I can go for Psychic, and I actually get a crit on my first Psychic, and my opponent forfeits the game. This is kind of the rub, maybe, with this team, is that I'm a little bit weak into Blissey. I could run Explosion on Gengar, and there is a pretty reasonable team structure where you have an Explosion Gengar so that you can put Blissey into range of your Dugtrio Earthquake. That's definitely a strategy. But personally, I like the Giga Drain idea with Gengar. I want to be able to hit Swampert as well. So I'm not mad about this. I will take that. Next we're up against Bird Lives? I don't know. With a lead Zapdos. Potentially a Superman team. Still potentially a Superman team. I'll go for Toxic to force the Blissey out. Bird Lives has the same idea, but misses. Now I can switch to Jirachi. Against a Toxic Blissey, my Jirachi is really good against it. This is not a Superman team. That's Steelix on there. I will go to Skarmory because the only thing Steelix can do against Skarmory is blow up. And I will get a Spike for my troubles here, which is really good. Baton Pass to Dugtrio. So this is exactly what I'm talking about here. And this has got to be... It's actually not a beat-up Dugtrio, but it is an Adamant Dug with HP to survive. Or with investment to survive an Ice Beam. Kind of interesting. I could have maybe went to my own Dug to try to trap, but if I'm not faster, it's not worth it. So I go to Gengar, who is obviously going to force the Dugtrio to switch out. And then I make a double to Skarmory. The idea is I wanted to bring Blissey in. And yeah, Blissey does come in. So now I can get another Spike up. This Blissey has Flamethrower, so it's basically the same Blissey set as me. And then I get my third layer. I will go to Dugtrio here because I know I live the Thunderbolt. And then I can double to Gengar on HP, presumably. I was presuming it was going to be an HP Ice, and I would have lived that quite easily, but my opponent gets a very lucky crit. Although, I don't know, maybe I would have died to the Thunderbolt anyway, but I digress. It's enough chip here that my Jirachi is now potentially threatening here. And this Dugtrio, so my Jirachi is designed to live one Dugtrio Earthquake. I don't know about an Adamant one. I'm not sure. I should probably calc that again. But, so I can't really go for game with my Jirachi here if this Dugtrio was at a higher HP. But because it's dead to Spikes, I I can certainly go for game here. Psychic will kill this Zapdos. Blissey will come in. I can call Mind again. Flamethrower is doing not very much. So now I can Psychic, and I get a Spadef drop, which is very fortunate. Now I'm threatening I think I'm threatening a kill. I don't quite get it, and my opponent Flamethrower and kills me. But now this Blissey's dead. Ice Beam will kill. If it switched out, it would have died to these guys. Now this is a interesting last two, Raikou and Porygon 2. So this is like a double Trapper team. Double Trapper generally has Magneton instead of Porygon 2, but this is like, I go Porygon 2 to eliminate your Dugtrio, and then my Dugtrio can run uncontested. So I get a Roar and kill off that Dugtrio, so my opponent doesn't have a sack. I go to Skarmory here, trying to sack it. If my opponent goes for anything other than Thunderbolt to kill my Skarm, I will Roar. I go for Spike there for no reason. I think I meant to click Roar. That was a misclick from me. My opponent is going for HP Rock, I guess? I don't know what that could be. And then Roar is going to guarantee that this player loses the game. This is a, this is the max speed Raikou, but max speed Raikou does not kill Dugtrio without a crit. If my opponent got a crit, I guess he wanted it more. But now Dugtrio comes in, gets the Earthquake damage off on Steelix, and Suicune should win this game from here. Ice Beam, so I don't risk a miss with Hydro Pump, and that's good. Brad, we're near 1600 on the ladder. That's pretty good. And yeah, Dugtrio was really nice in that game, and against a Porygon 2 team. Now, I can't remember, how did the Dugtrio come out? I think he got roared in, right? No, I went to Dugtrio on a Zapdos. Interesting to me that my opponent decided not to go for the Porygon there, but I mean, credit to him. This play worked out, especially because of the crit, but I digress. So I'm not salty about it or anything. Right, last game here. Lead Swampert, which is pretty uncommon. My Suicune is generally better into that. I'll go for Hydro Pump just to get the damage off. I go to Skarmory on the Celebi, get my Spike up, and there's a Magneton. So Magneton will kill my Skarm. But I could go to Dugtrio and just get a kill there. Now sometimes, yeah, Magneton could have the Endure Salac set. It would Endure, I would put it down to 1 HP, Salac would proc, and then it would have a faster HP Grass or Ice into Dugtrio. You can live that depending on your defensive investment. I think we're not favored to live that with my Dugtrio, but I could always just switch to Blissey. Like, what is Magneton going to do to Blissey in that case? So I'm not that afraid of that set. And with a Spike down, I know Magneton can never come back in. So this is actually a Curse Swampert. Could be dangerous, but I have Giga Drain. I actually go for Ice Punch because I know that Giga Drain won't... I don't think Giga Drain one-shots Swampert, depending on its bulk. So I'm willing to go for an Ice Punch to chip it into Giga Drain range, and I should be able to get most of my HP back there. It also covers the Celebi switch, and I do get the Celebi switch. I'll just Ice Punch and kill off the Celebi. I don't know why my opponent stayed in. Maybe thought that I was a slower Gengar. But now I'll just go for Giga Drain. I could have maybe done the Ice Punch Giga Drain idea there, but I just wanted to get as much chip on the Swampert as I could. Now I'll go for Ice Punch because I'm pretty sure it kills and could hit anything else on switching. And unfortunately, I get a Metagross. But I can go to Suicune, who is going to live anything that the Metagross does, as long as it didn't get the raise. I go for Hydro Pump and miss, which is... this kind of sucks, but Dugtrio can come in and trap this and kill it. This Swampert's also in trap and kill range, so keep that in mind. There are some targets that you don't always think are Dugtrio targets, but over the course of the game in Chip, then Dugtrio can trap and kill. So I will go to Blissey there, which will always survive a +1 Brick Break unless it crits, and then kill with Ice Beam. Unless it's a very high Spadef Salamence, it is a set. But I'll go a hard switch to Dugtrio here. Because unless my opponent is going to predict Dugtrio to come in and go for an Earthquake or something, I'm going to beat it. And it happens to be an Adamant Tyranitar, so I kill that. It might be a bulky Tyranitar as well that doesn't run as much speed. Now Salamence can come in. I can go to Blissey because I should live 2 of any hit as long as I don't get crit or +1 boosted hit. Ice Beam gets the kill on Swampert. Salamence comes in, and it should just die to Ice Beam here. It has to go for Dragon Dance, because otherwise it will get outsped and die to an Ice Punch from my Gengar. It actually does survive it, but not enough. Not with enough HP for the Sandstorm to not kill, so that's unfortunate. If my opponent was specking for that, probably should have calced it with Sandstorm damage. Maybe could have run a little bit more Spadef to not die. It would probably require him to cut some into his attack investment, but I think that would be worth it. Because Blissey is otherwise a very free switch to Salamence, and maybe this is why ABR hates Salamence, because Blissey is a ultra counter to it. But no, this was a good game for Dugtrio. It was threatening a lot of the things here. It got a kill on Magneton, Metagross, and Tyranitar. Generally, you're not going to get 3 kills with Dugtrio. You usually just want to eliminate 1 high-value target. But if you have a sturdy team that you can switch around, then you actually have a lot of really nice things that you can do with Dugtrio later in a game. And how many examples of doing things with Dugtrio was that? So Dugtrio revenge kills this Magneton, so that's one of the things. Revenge kills the Metagross, and then I get a hard switch, play right into the Tyranitar. So that was 2 out of the 3 things that I suggest how to get Dugtrio in. Granted, I don't have Baton Pass on this team. You could always, I think it would be cool if you guys try this with lead Vaporeon with Baton Pass instead. That could be really nice into Tyranitar sets. If you do that, you might want to run a Jolly Dugtrio though, so that you're guaranteed to outspeed any DD Tars. Although, granted, I don't think DD Tar is gonna stay in versus Vaporeon. But that could be an interesting thought. I have not personally tried it, but it's something I've been thinking about, and maybe I will try it one day. But yeah, that was it. That was kind of long, but I think that's warranted because Dugtrio is a pretty good Pokemon. There's a lot to say about it because it has a lot of a big metagame presence. I have been kind of avoiding talking about really good Pokemon, especially ones that have lots of sets like Tyranitar and Gengar, especially, because I feel like that would be an extremely long video. But maybe I don't know, if I do a subscriber special, I could do that. If you're at this point of the video, I would implore you to check to see if you're subscribed, because I would like this channel to grow so that I can maybe do some other cool things. I'd definitely be down to do a really long video about one of these higher tier Pokemon if I've got a good enough subscriber base to support that sort of thing. But in any case, we will see you for whatever the next video is. I think I know what Pokemon it's going to be. I'm going back to my fringe OU roots. So maybe leave a prediction for what you think it's going to be. I will see you for that video.